So let's talk about Dungeon Hindenburg. You know, graphics-wise, I thought it was on point. I liked the graphics of it. You know, I mean, the cell shading was really neat. It was really nice. It was sound-wise, I mean, nothing extraordinary, but nothing terrible. I mean, it was all right. Nothing was voice acted, which is okay. I don't mind that. I mean, although there was an absolute metric ton of dialogue. It got to the point that it was overwhelming by the end of the game. Also, I mean, I just got tired of it. I was fast forwarding through some of it, especially that emo chick with the purple hair. I just didn't give two shits about what she had to say because it was just always just so meh. You know, it was like they went a little overboard with. It's like they wrote this for teenagers. Is what it really felt like with the emo and everybody's angry and everything. Puzzles were simplistic at times, and sometimes I wouldn't say they were brain busting, but they certainly were not in my face. But then again, I'm not very good at puzzles, so for me, I think it was like you had combat. It was you could literally see it: combat, puzzle, combat, puzzle, combat, puzzle, puzzle, combat, puzzle. It was very rhythmic and sing-song. And the combat was rhythmic. For the most part, it was pretty good. Until you get to the bosses, the combat when you get to the bosses just kind of came out of nowhere, right? Now, if there was like area bosses, like each zone had a big major boss instead of the last 5 dungeons, and then you had this big slimy boss thing that flew that you couldn't hit it, because you had no ranged weaponry except for your spells. Like really, I didn't like that at all. The end just took forever to get there. The upgrades were okay. I mean, it was a typical RPG grind stuff for that, so that was all right. I mean, it was a little. I mean, I thought that everything was a little expensive for the in-game currency, but you started finding a lot of money near the end of the game. The relationships were a slog. They were probably the second worst part of the game for me. I absolutely did not like it. I don't like that. I played games to where you had to, you know, oh, what is it gonna load into? I'm curious. Probably the menu. Yeah. So I don't, talking to the folks was okay, but what made it a slog was you could only do one thing per day. I can only go rest in that end of the afternoon, or I could do a dungeon in that end of the afternoon. And then I get to the evening, you can go talk to one, or you could really only quote unquote, you had to hang out with them to level them up. But there was no meter to tell you what you had to do to, how far were you level them up, what was it, did you have to give them gifts, did you do things for them, or whatever, there'd be quests for them rather than hang sessions. It was just, and it got old. I mean, it was like, some of them were, there were so many of them. There's 16 of them. I spent 2 hours yesterday, just the day before, doing nothing but doing the final level ups to get that shit out of the way, and most of them were useless. The only ones that were really worthwhile were the 4 pro people, and of course the chick that leveled you up, that enchanted your weaponry and upgraded your armor. I mean, you could do the guy or do the guy. Wow, you could finish the relationship with the guy that owned the shop to get free items, but all the others were kind of, you got some charms, but the really good stuff from the pro people. That's where you get the good armor, but and what have you. Only your sword really changed anything, right? That's the only look and feel of your setup was the sword. Everything else stayed exactly the same, no matter what leggings you had on, no matter what armor, pads and shirt. I guess it was knee pads or shoulder pads. I don't know what they were, but none of the armor gave you perks. All you did was just defense. That's it. So it kind of didn't really make a whole lot of sense. I mean, you had like armor defense and magic defense, but there was no And every once in a while you see they had like a crit up for it, but it wasn't like you had like a set bonus. So it was like, well, what's the point of this? The all the items were in a the menu structure was not very good. It was, rather than a grid, when you're shopping, it was just a big list. And it became, once you got near the end of the game, they didn't take away from it. Like, you bought the item, it was gone. It was still there. You buy it again, but it was just a big long list between all the items, and then I just didn't like it. And you had this group of monster collectors to where they were funny, but you had to start collecting all these parts, right, to get their buffs or whatever. And some of the buffs are pretty neat. Be like, 2, 3, 4, 500. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 500, but it wasn't cumulative. You started over. You got 100 parts. Well, now you got to go get 200 parts. We turn that in. Well, now you got to get 300 additional parts. Turn that in. Now you get 400 additional parts. It was too much. And the collective coins were there was nothing to them. It's just something to collect. All right. Problem with those is that if you died after you got one of them and you didn't get a checkpoint or some kind of like autosave, it didn't register. Because you were expecting to grab that, you grab a coin and you suddenly died. You're like, oh, okay, well, I got that because it's a collectible. Every other game I've ever played since The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time back in the early 90s that did that. Well, nope, not here. You died, you have to go recollect everything again. And so I missed one, which really just cheesed me off, and I let it push my buttons. And you had to go back through and get it. And one of those coins I had missed, apparently, because I didn't notice there was a ramp. Okay? Because it was a tree. And I had to go fight the boss in that level again. So I just dropped it down to like the easiest, which is that vocation, whatever. But still, right? It was just, I'd say, the day thing was absolutely did not work for me. I didn't like that at all. They could have done it and allowed you to do a couple of items throughout the day, or have the days trigger based off of the number of, like you did all the level 1 dungeons, level 2 dungeons, that kind of thing, instead of one thing per day. It became a slog, especially with the movement, man. It's just like that was part of the whole game. Everything's slow. Trying to climb, it was slow. It didn't respond. Sometimes it wouldn't respond with my attacks, or it would over respond, and it wouldn't respond to my dodges. The dodges didn't cancel out. You were animation locked. So. And the camera, whenever you locked onto something, the camera would hover, rather than just locking onto it. The camera would track down behind you, and so if something moved, the camera view would be blocked. So why? It didn't make any sense. It was interesting that in some of the dungeons they decided to change your camera perspective, but it was forced, whether it was above you isometric or fixed perspective like side view, like a scroller. Sometimes I felt it was all right, but sometimes, especially when you need to aim your magic, didn't work. I did like the fact that your magic changed based on the area you were in. That was neat. Except for I did not like the magic set in the swamp, which was like some jelly thing and a floaty, like will-o-wisp lightning ball. That was just meh. The one with the air it was pretty cool, and the snowboard was pretty neat. I like that one, but I didn't like any of the others. For me, this was honestly, it was just okay. It was just a 3 out of 5 for me. I'm glad I played it on Game Pass. I probably would have been really mad if I'd bought it, unless it was on some kind of serious sale. It's not expensive, only $30. So definitely, if you like these kind of story-driven RPGs, this is your bag. I just didn't like. I probably would have jived with it a lot more if I didn't have to get forced into one thing per night, one thing per day. You didn't know if you're progressing. There's no little meter bar. On the stamp page of you collecting, for your dungeons, it didn't say, there was no symbol on it saying you got the coin for it. So especially if you're trophy hunting. If you're not trophy hunting, who gives a crap? Because the coins don't give you anything. That would have been nice. The coins gave you benefits, right? Not just money, but they gave you benefits. Like you earn a little extra XP or extra money, do a little bit extra, 1% extra damage, that kind of thing. Give me, make it make sense that I'm collecting this. The devs in an article actually said that achievement hunting shouldn't be grindy. Well, guess what? That was pretty goddamn grindy to try to go back and find those. It was nice I could do it, but if you got to the last dungeon, it was a boss rush. That was it. You fought the boss twice, and then you're immediately put into the final area. No, you couldn't save. You just had to keep going, and you fought some gooey monster thing that had a hitbox that was very questionable for me, just because it floated and had lightning around it. Maybe that was why it was so extensive. Well, anyways, I think it's enough rambling about it. Like I said, 3 out of 5. I'm glad I played it on Game Pass. Till next time.